Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Naila Shujra and these are the headlines. The United Kingdom, Germany and France say Iran's nuclear activity is deeply worrying. In a joint statement, they raised concerns over Iran's laws that obliges the government to halt United Nations inspections of its nuclear sites. Iran has announced further uranium enrichment following the assassination of its top nuclear scientist last month. In Afghanistan's southern Kandahar province, a car bomb has targeted Daman district's governor's compound near the police headquarters. A spokesman for the governor said 33 people, including 11 security personnel, were injured in the blast. Turkey says it will not bow to threats in its dispute with Greece and Cyprus over maritime claims in the eastern Mediterranean. However, President Tayyip Erdogan said Ankara wants negotiations over the claims to the continental shelves and energy resources. Erdogan's statement comes as European Union's foreign ministers are meeting today in Brussels to discuss the issue. China says it firmly opposes and strongly condemns U.S. interference in its domestic affairs. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said Beijing will take the legitimate measures to safeguard its sovereignty and security. The ministry issued the statement over a media report that Washington is preparing new sanctions on Chinese officials. The global number of coronavirus cases has topped 67 million, while the virus has claimed over 1.5 million lives. Britain says it will procure up to 4 million doses of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine as the country's death toll exceeds 61,000. The disease has claimed more than 140,000 lives in India, while its caseload has exceeded 9.6 million. Pakistan has registered nearly 3,800 cases, 37 deaths overnight, taking the toll to 8,398. And in football, AC Milan beat Sampdoria 2-1 in a Serie A encounter at the Luigi Ferraris. After a scrappy first half, Milan finally broke Sampdoria's resistance when Frank Kessie scored from a penalty in the 45th minute. Unbeaten in the league this season, Milan stay 5 points clear at the top. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. The United Kingdom, Germany and France say Iran's nuclear activity is deeply worrying. In a joint statement, they raised concerns over Iran's new laws that obliges the government to halt UN inspections of its nuclear sites. Iran has earlier revealed plans to install an additional 3 cascades of advanced centrifuges at its nuclear plant in Natanz. The European powers feel the move will jeopardize efforts to protect the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. They say Iran's actions will risk the return to diplomacy with U.S. President-elect Joe Biden's administration. Tensions over Iran's nuclear program have risen after the assassination of its top nuclear scientist last month. The top U.S. Navy official in the Middle East says America has reached an uneasy deterrence with Iran. Tensions remain high over Tehran's nuclear program after months of regional attacks and seizures at sea. Vice Admiral Sam Paparo, who oversees the Navy's 5th Fleet based in Bahrain, was speaking to a think tank. He described having a healthy respect for both Iran's Navy and its Parliamentary Revolutionary Guard. He said that he found Iranian activity at sea to be cautious and circumspect and respectful. Meanwhile, Tehran said Iran's naval forces have always professionally conducted themselves. A spokesperson for Iran's UN mission questioned what the United States Navy was doing 7,000 miles away from its territorial waters. In Afghanistan's southern Kandahar province, a car bomb has targeted the Daman district governor's compound near the police headquarters. A spokesman for the governor said 33 people, including 11 security personnel, were injured in the blast. Officials say the district police chief is also among those injured. They said that the police headquarters building is also damaged in the blast. No group has taken responsibility. Turkey says it will not bow to threats in its dispute with Greece and Cyprus over maritime claims in the eastern Mediterranean. In a video message, Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan said Ankara wants negotiations over the claims to the continental shelves and energy resources. Erdogan said Turkey has never sided with the issue but promoted peace, cooperation, and the establishment of justice. He said problems can only be solved by bringing all the actors in the region to the negotiation table. Earlier, Germany said European foreign ministers would discuss measures against Turkey at their meeting today. Turkey says it has neutralized 11 militants of the Kurdistan Workers' Party during a counter-terrorist operation in Iraq. The National Defense Ministry said airstrikes were carried out in the Zab and Haftanin regions. It said nearly 500 Kurdish militants have been killed in northern Iraq over the past 5 months. Ankara vowed to continue to destroy weapon caches and shelters used by the terrorists. Turkey holds the PKK responsible for the deaths of some 40,000 people in a 30-year terror campaign. Ethiopia has denied reports that rebellious northern forces are mounting a guerrilla war from the mountains of Tigray. In a statement, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said Tigray's People Liberation Front is pushing a false narrative. Abiy said that the front's claim that its fighters are well armed to risk a protracted insurgency in the rugged mountains of Tigray is false. He said the front is also lying about undertaking strategic retreat with its capability and regional government apparatus intact. He said the front is thoroughly defeated and in disarray with insufficient capability to mount any insurgency. The Tigray conflict has killed hundreds of people and has enforced thousands more to flee to neighboring states. The global number of coronavirus cases has topped 67 million with over 1.5 million deaths. The United States remains the worst affected country, while India has the second highest tally of COVID-19 cases in the world. More on the coronavirus in this report.
While mass vaccination drives against the deadly coronavirus kindle hopes of the beginning of the end of the pandemic, deaths and new cases worldwide are shooting through the roof. U.S. President Donald Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, has also tested positive for the coronavirus. Reporting more than 200,000 daily cases for the fourth consecutive day, the U.S. government says the country is facing the worst event in its history.
This is not just the worst public health event. This is the worst event that this country will face, not just from a public health side. Yet, we know what behaviors spread the virus, and we know how to change those behaviors to stop spreading the virus.
Over in Europe, testing has been suspended in parts of the Austrian Alps after massive amounts of snow fell in the region. Italy, one of the worst hit parts of Europe, announced more travel restrictions for the Christmas period. Britain says it will procure up to 4 million doses of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine as the country's death toll exceeds 61,000. Meanwhile, a tiny Belgian town has become the ground zero in the fight against coronavirus as Pfizer turns the town into one of its largest production sites in the world.
We always say that we are going to save the world, and that's the feeling in our town. The people are glad that we can give a contribution and to leave this difficult period for a lot of people.
Over in Asia, Serum Institute of India, world's largest vaccine producer by volume, has sought emergency use authorization for AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine. India has reported nearly 33,000 cases and 391 fatalities in the last 24 hours, while Indonesia received its first shipment of vaccine from China as the government prepares a mass inoculation program.
In Pakistan, 37 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, pushing the death toll to 8,205. Health officials say more than 3,700 tested positive for the virus overnight. They say with 39,000 tests conducted across Pakistan, the positivity rate has reached 9.7%. The health ministry says there are more than 55,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It said out of more than 420,000 countrywide cases, over 356,000 have recovered. Pakistan says developing states need $2 to $3 trillion to revive their economies in the wake of COVID-19's adverse impacts. In an interview, Pakistan's envoy to the United Nations, Munir Akram, said developing states do not have financial capacity to recover from the pandemic. Munir Akram said economic collapse is confronting a number of vulnerable countries. He said the consequences of the developing world's economic collapse will be devastating for the world economy as a whole. Akram added, in a bid to keep the economies afloat during the pandemic, many countries are falling into debt. He said the developed world needs to take urgent actions to meet the needs of the developing countries, otherwise it will be a humanitarian disaster. In India, one person has died and 350 have been hospitalized by an unidentified mystery illness in the southern state of Andhra Pradesh. The cause of the disease has not been yet determined. The unknown disease has become a concern of grave for the people. Doctors say people are sick with the disease include both young and old alike. Medical practitioners say they have observed symptoms of dizziness, nausea, headache, and epilepsy in the victims. Health Minister of the Andhra Pradesh, Alakali Krishna Shrivas, said medical help is being provided to the patients.
Doctors are trying to find the reason for the en masse sickness. All the patients are stable now. A girl has been sent to Vijayawada for further treatment. A team of doctors have gone to the area where the people fell sick and are conducting medical tests in every house in that area.
In the United Kingdom, thousands of people protested in London over agriculture reforms in India. Police made 13 arrests over breaches of COVID-19 regulations. A crowd of demonstrators converged outside the Indian embassy in London. People also marched in groups around the Trafalgar Square area. Earlier, 36 British lawmakers wrote a letter to Foreign Minister Dominic Raab calling for an urgent meeting. The lawmakers said the matter is an issue of concern for the Sikhs in the United Kingdom. The new farm laws in India have drawn international condemnation. Farmers have described them as a death warrant, but several rounds of talks to achieve a breakthrough have remained unsuccessful. Over in the United States, state of Georgia, Republican governor has rejected President Donald Trump's push to overturn the election results. In an interview, the deputy governor said the state is not going to move goalposts at this point in the election. Jeff Duncan said Governor Brian Kemp will not succumb to any pressure to call a special session of the state legislature. Duncan said that he voted and campaigned for the U.S. president, but he did not want the state of Georgia. They stated that the Constitution is still in place and Biden would be sworn in as the 46th United States president. The statement comes a day after President Trump asked Kemp to overturn Biden's win in the state. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden has picked California Attorney General Xavier Becerra to be his health secretary. China says it firmly opposes and strongly condemns U.S. interference in its domestic affairs. The Foreign Ministry issued the statement over a media report that Washington is preparing new sanctions on Chinese officials. Spokeswoman Hua Chunying said Beijing will take the legitimate measures to safeguard its sovereignty and security. At a press briefing, she also condemned U.S. sanctions on the Chinese Communist Party's United Worker Front Department. Earlier, Washington also imposed visa restrictions on Chinese officials for their alleged action against critics. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has vowed accountability for the families of Christchurch mosque attack victims. Her statement comes ahead of the public release of a major report into the country's worst massacre. The inquiry looked at whether there were any failings by government agencies and if the mass shooting could have been prevented. Authorities were criticized for ignoring repeated warnings from the Muslim community that hate crimes against them were escalating. The report contains interviews with hundreds of people, including security agencies, Muslim community leaders, and international experts. An Australian white supremacist was sentenced to life in prison without parole in August for killing 51 Muslim worshippers. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Pakistan has recently inked an agreement with a private British automobile firm for the manufacturing of electric buses. This will save up to $31 million worth of fuel expenses on an annual basis. More in this report by our correspondent, Minahil Ahmed.
Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, will be the first city to have environment-friendly electric transport by next year. The draft of agreement was signed by Science and Technology Minister Fawad Chaudhry and the British firm CEO. The minister says a Swiss charging station company is expected to build a manufacturing plant in Pakistan.
We have at least two big electric bus manufacturers who are establishing manufacturing in Pakistan. Likewise, we have the charging station company, Swiss charging station company, who has now shown interest to put up a manufacturing plant as far as EV chargers are concerned. So that will be another big industry, and I think these two will change Pakistan's future export market.
In the first phase, the British firm will manufacture electric buses for Pakistan, while in the second, more crucial phase, it will help the country in the production of vehicles locally. CEO of the automobile manufacturing firm Azam Khan said the company will also introduce 3 and 2 electric wheelers in the country.
We have come up with a project of electric buses, 3-wheelers and 2-wheelers. So we are starting with electric buses first, and we'll be having an assembly plant in Pakistan.
Director of the firm Saqib Noor said through their projects, they aim to achieve zero emissions.
Our slogan is zero emission, to attain the zero emission and social impact through bringing the ecosystem. And for that, we have the e-mobility, the electric cars, and the e-housing as well. So we have but at the moment we are starting with Pakistan with the e-mobility.
The initial plan is to roll out 30 electric buses across Islamabad, hoping to make it the region's first city with all-electric public transport. In future, other cities like Lahore and Karachi will also welcome emission-free transport. Minahil Ahmed, Indus News, Islamabad.
An Indian jeweler has set a Guinness World Record for most diamond in a single ring. There are more than 12,000 diamonds in the ring, weighing 165.45 grams. More about the diamond ring in this report.
With a hope to receive international recognition, Renani Jewels in India has made a ring with 12,638 diamonds. They have dubbed the ring as the Marigold, meaning the ring of prosperity. It was Renani Jewels and Managing Director Harshad Bansal's dream to achieve a Guinness World Records title.
This ring took around 2.5 to 3 years of my life. How can I put a price on 3 years of my life? It is priceless for us.
Bansal said all of the diamonds on the ring were of the best qualities used in jewelry worldwide. It took the jewelers 3 years to conceptualize and design the record-making ring. They used 38.08 carat natural diamonds for the ring.
When I was doing a course for jewelry designing around 2.5 years ago, this idea came to me, to make a ring which has more than 10,000 diamonds. I started conceptualizing the ring then, when I was learning. Slowly, I made several designs. Family also supported me, and it finally happened.
The previous record was set with 7,801 diamonds.
In an updated pagan rite, COVID-19 masks now adorn healing trees in northern France. When all else fails, people hang them on branches to pray for protection against the pandemic. More about this ritual in this report.
It is a ritual steeped in pagan mystery, updated for the coronavirus age. Sick people in northern France occasionally leave garments in healing trees in the hope of a cure, following a tradition that persists since pre-Roman times.
Here we are in front of a ritual tree where people ask for healing. It's a tree that dates back to antiquity, before the Roman times. People would come here to hang clothing which has been in contact with the body parts that need to be healed.
But locals who pay attention have noticed a recent change.
The new development in 2020 is COVID masks. What's interesting about the COVID masks is that all this clothing hanging from an ancient ritual are linked to finding a cure, to heal an illness. But I think hanging the masks is a preventive act to protect oneself from potential harm.
Known as rag trees in Ireland, one of several other countries where the practices survives, they show pagan and Christian influences. Despite appearances which can be disconcerting, they still bring people hope. People turn to the healing tree when medicine has reached its limits and when science has let them down.
SpaceX has successfully launched an upgraded Dragon cargo spacecraft on a resupply mission to the International Space Station. The SpaceX Falcon 9 was launched from Kennedy Space Center's launch complex in Florida. The spacecraft is expected to dock autonomously with the Zenith port of the space station's Harmony module today. The Dragon, flying a mission-designated CRS-21, is carrying over 2,900 kilograms of cargo. The upgraded Dragon capsule can now carry around 20% more volume than the previous version. The launch marked the milestone 100th successful launch of a Falcon 9 over 101 missions for SpaceX. China's exports have seen fastest ever monthly growth in November as its factories continue to benefit from global lockdowns. Exports rocketed by 21.1% from November previous year, with imports rising by 4.5%. China's customs agency says shipments in November surged at the fastest pace in 3 years. Beijing's trade surplus for November jumped to $75.42 billion, up by almost 103% from 2019, the largest since 1981. Improved domestic demand and higher commodity prices helped the trade figures surpass forecasts by analysts. The world's second largest economy has recorded a growth in exports for the 6th month in a row now. European stocks are trading lower as investors monitor last-ditch efforts by the United Kingdom and the EU to reach a post-Brexit trade deal. The pan-European stock 600 slipped close to 1% as majority sectors declined. Frankfurt's DAX and Italy's FTSE MIB have slid almost 1%. London's FTSE is hovering around the flat line, while the CAC 40 in Paris has slipped up more than 1%. Earlier, Asian stocks traded mixed. Mainland Chinese, Hong Kong, and Japanese shares shed, while South Korean and Australian bourses gained. In football, AC Milan beat Sampdoria 2-1 in a Serie A encounter at the Luigi Ferraris. Milan are now 5 points clear on top of the table, followed by Inter Milan and Napoli. Frank Kessie put the visitors ahead in the first half, while Samu Castillo doubled Milan's lead in the 77th minute. Albin Ekdal did put one back for Sampdoria, failed to find an equalizer. In another fixture, Napoli thrashed Crotone 4-0 at the Stadio Ezzicida. Lorenzo Insigne put Napoli ahead of the interval. At the second half, goals from Herving Lanzo, Diego Dimi, and Andrea Pitangna completed the scoreline for Napoli. Meanwhile, Liverpool thrashed Wolverhampton Wanderers 4-0 to go second in the Premier League table. The defending champions are now tied with the leaders of Tottenham with 24 points from 11 fixtures. Mohamed Salah gave Liverpool the lead in the first half after Wolves defender Connor Cody misjudged a long ball from Jordan Henderson. Second half goals from Georgino Wijnaldum, Joel Matipi, and Nelson Semedo made a scoreline 4-0 at the final whistle. Some 2,000 spectators spectators were allowed to Anfield for the first time since March. In another fixture, Spurs beat Arsenal 2-0 at home. Hong Heung-min and Harry Kane scored goals for the hosts. And in the German Bundesliga, Bayer Leverkusen beat Schalke 3-0 at the Veltins Arena. With this win, Leverkusen moved up to the second and closed the gap with leaders Bayern Munich to 1 point. Leverkusen opened their account with an own goal from Malik Thwai in the 10th minute. Second half goals from Julian Baumgartlinger and Patrick Schick were close enough to seal 3 crucial points for Leverkusen. Schalke are winless from 26 league games and sit at the foot of the table on 3 points. Pakistan's cricket team has been cleared to leave managed isolation in Christchurch after the 5th round of COVID testing. The team had their training exemptions revoked last week after 10 people out of the 53-member squad tested positive. Pakistan are to head to Queenstown for intra-squad warm-up matches before the T20 series starts on the 18th of December. They will leave behind 1 member who will join the team after completing his managed isolation period. Pakistan will play 3 T20 matches and 2 tests in New Zealand, while the Pakistan A Tour is currently being run. Earlier, Pakistan announced an 18-member squad for their T20 series. The 3-match series will begin on the 18th of December and end on the 22nd. Babar Azam will lead the Green team, while Shadab Khan will serve as the vice-captain. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.